Okay, everyone, right now, I know you're at home, you're looking at the screen. I want you to just take a second with me, and we're all going to breathe in, okay? On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Let it out, let it out. Do you smell that? That's summer. It's summertime. We're almost there. It's been raining lately. Things are becoming fresh. There's green leaves. It's looking amazing. Summer is my favorite time of the year. Winter, it sucks. There's like 2-week window where it's New Year's and Christmas. That's the best time. Everything else sucks. Fall is the worst. It's tempting you with like, hey, look, it's getting colder. It's getting colder. All this stuff's dying around you. Fall's the worst. Spring, there's hope. There's hope. It's fresh life. But summer, you can't beat it. It's number one. It's number one. Now, I hope you've let out your breath at this time, but if you need to keep doing that, keep doing that. But summers were the time of the year where I just did whatever I wanted to do. But then summers changed. And how did it change? I had to get summer jobs. Now, you might not be there yet, and if you're not, enjoy it. But let me tell you about my summers. So life eventually, it comes at a cost, okay? You want a Slurpee? You gotta go buy it. You want new clothes? You gotta go buy them. I know. My mom was like, hey, I'm done doing this for you. You gotta go do it yourself. So it's like, how do I do that? You pay for everything I do. My parents said, you gotta get a job. Okay, I understand. I guess the days of waking up at 10:30, going and getting a fresh bowl of Cheerios and watching The Price is Right, those days were numbered. And it did come to a close. I had to get a summer job. And my first job ever was working for a family friend for a construction company, and we built storage units. That was my very first job. We built storage units, like the ones you see on Storage Wars where they open them up and they bid on them. I built those things all around Calgary and some places in Alberta. It was a pretty interesting job. Now, the mornings were very early, okay? Very early. The days were very long. The days were very hot, and the work was tiring. I was working with metal, so you get cuts in your hands. Every time you went home and washed your hands at the end of the day, you'd be like, oh, it's like putting sanitizer in a cut. Yeah, we all know what that feels like this past year. It's the worst. So that was my first summer job, but I actually really enjoyed it. It was like putting together a giant Lego set. I got to work with amazing people. I love the guys I work with. That's what made the job really good. And you know what? Summer flew by. But the best part, the little piece of paper that I got to take home after 2 weeks, the cashola, the dollar bills. That was the best part. I'm like, man, I'm rich. And at that time, you know, the money I was making, I was like, this is a pretty good amount of cash. I've never had this in my life. It felt so good. I would take my check home at the end of the 2 weeks and just stare at it sometimes, put it on the fridge, just admire it. And be like, oh, you, all mine. But my mom said, we got to go put that in the bank. I'm like, okay, yeah, I guess so. And so we go take it to the bank. And then she would say, you know, take out 10%. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I guess. Some Slurpee money, some cash money, fun money, I got to go out there and do something. Maybe my mom's thinking, maybe we invest, buy some Dogecoin, something like that. No. She's like, you got to tithe. You got to give that 10% to the church. I'm like, tithe? What are you talking about? This is my money. I earned this. This is my cash. I don't understand what you're saying. She says, tithe. We do it every time we get money. Now, I had to learn this. She explained it a lot further, and it has become a normal thing in my life, tithe, giving money to the church. But I never really started to question it or understand it fully for myself. And I think when we do question it and why we understand that it's necessary, we start to learn from it. In the next few minutes, I'm going to be talking about a topic, the myth. We're in the series where we're debunking some of these things. And my line is, the church just wants my money. The church just wants your money. That's all it's about. That's what it boils down to. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to break it down. This is a good question to ask. This is a good topic. Money and the church is a very taboo subject at times. So I want us to dive into this, dive into the root of it, and where this idea that the church just wants my money comes from and why we think that way sometimes. Now here's some fun facts about money and the Bible. Are you ready? Now, I think we would all agree that prayer is a very vital part of our life. As a Christian, as a believer, as a follower of Jesus, prayer is a very important daily routine, part of our relationship with God, and we should do it every single day. Now, the Bible touches on the topic of prayer about 500 times. 500. That's a huge number. Okay? But hear this. The Bible talks about the topic of money 2,000 times. 2,000 times. That's 4 times we talk. And we talk about prayer all the time in the church. But money, not as much. Now, Jesus, in fact, he spoke about money more than he did even heaven or hell. Okay? The eternal. He talked about money more than those 2 things. So it's safe to say that money is a large topic in not only the church, but it's a large topic in our faith in Scripture and in what the Bible teaches us. Now, there's this word that I mentioned before called tithe. Now, it's a church word. It's used very often. And, well, you might be asking, what is tithe? Here's what it is. The word means tenth, which would boil down to 10%. Now, back in the Old Testament, people were to give 10%, a tenth, their tithe, that would be their harvest or their earnings, to the temple. And then the temple would take that money and they would give it to the places that are in need, the people that are in need. It would help the community around them. That's what it was used for. It's saving kind of for a rainy day even sometimes. But this is really an Old Testament term because when you go to the New Testament, the word tithe isn't talked about as much. It's not a word that we hear very often. So you may ask, well, if it's just something in the Old Testament, then why do we do it? Why do we still carry on with this practice? And do we need to value it as much? Because it's an Old Testament thing. We're in the New Testament. Jesus came, he redid everything. No, we need to still talk about tithe. And that's because in the New Testament, the words are changed a little bit. We now see generosity as the word that replaces that a little bit. We see giving. And we're gonna understand what that means more in the New Testament. In the Old Testament, it was a rule, okay? In the New Testament, it's a lifestyle, generosity. And that's because of Jesus. That's it. Jesus knew that money was important, okay? Jesus knew the value of it. God knows that we need money to live. We need money to get things, food, resources, tons of things in our lives. We function around it. But it's never been about the money with God or Jesus. It's never been about that. It's been about our hearts. It's about our hearts. And why there's not much mention of the word tithe in the New Testament is because Jesus didn't die on the cross so that he can get your money. That's it. He died on the cross because he loves you. He died on the cross because he doesn't want you to be punished for your sins. He died on the cross so that we can have an everlasting life in him, that we can enter the gates of heaven. He did it so that our hearts will not be after the things of this world, but after sharing the hope and love that took victory on that cross. That is why Jesus died on the cross. But focus with me here. Why Jesus talked about money so often, why the Bible talks about it from beginning to end, we're still talking about money, is because God knows the power of money. Jesus knew that money can consume us. It can consume our heart, our soul, and our mind. It can devour us. And what the New Testament shows isn't a religious practice of tithing, but a lifestyle of generosity. A lifestyle of giving to those who are in need, those who need, and if we have it, then we can share it with those who may not be so fortunate. Jesus saw the power that money held. He saw it in the world around him. He wasn't put into New York City on a beautiful skyscraper. No, he went into an area of the world that, there was a huge divide in people. He saw people lusting after money. He saw the division that money caused. He saw the pain that it brought those who had little and the pain that it brought those who had so much. He saw greed all around him, even in his own community. Jesus talked about money so often because he knows the effects that it can have on our life. He knows that it can affect every area of our life. And if we let the love of money go unchecked, then we can easily get lost. We can be consumed by the love of money. And what does money cause? Well, instead of noticing people, we're all focused on ourselves. I want more. Give me more. Give me more. It's all about me. I want more money for me, me, me. And we are in this endless chase of more and more. Matthew 6:21. It's my favorite passage in the Gospels is Matthew 6. So it was awesome that this lined up like this. It's in a passage literally titled, Jesus teaches about money. That's where you can find it. That's what it says. And the verse is, for where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Where your treasure is, your heart will be there too. We cannot serve two masters. You cannot love money and love God equally. It doesn't work that way. King Solomon, if you've ever heard of him, he's from the Old Testament, and he was one of the kings of Israel. And King Solomon, if you don't know this, is the richest human to ever walk this earth. Yeah, Elon Musk, what? He's got like 250 billion. That's cute, Elon. Keep your batteries. King Solomon was worth $2 trillion. Trillion. Like we're talking US debt numbers here now. $2 trillion. That's insane. And it's actually true that on every year that King Solomon reigned over Israel as the king, they would give him 25 tons of gold every year. And he was king for 39 years. So do the math yourself. That's insane. The guy had gold on gold. He had houses on houses. He was rich. King Solomon says this in Ecclesiastes 5, he's the author. He writes, whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. And if you read Ecclesiastes, King Solomon is sharing all the things in his life. He has had everything. Richest man in the world. He has had everything, but yet it's all meaningless. It's fleeting. It never lasts. And he's saying that about money. Money can so quickly become about us. And we can quickly start to believe the lie that our value is wrapped up in how much we have sitting in our bank account, how many objects we have, what's on our bodies, what's in our homes, what we can say we own. We get our value wrapped up in that so quick. And this is why the idea of giving money to the church is such a taboo subject, because we start to believe the bigger lie that money is ours. All of it. That my money. The money that we earn, it's mine to keep, all of it. And we start to believe this lie. And it's so hard to give money to the church because we thought it is ours. When I struggled to give away my paycheck, that 10%, my first paycheck ever, is because I thought it was all mine. All of it. And let me ask you this, does money have your heart or does God have your heart? Getting things isn't a bad thing. New shoes, we need them. New clothes, it happens eventually. Sometimes we get a little bit of excess. We get things like that we don't exactly need. I can probably live without an iPad. It's true. But am I putting my value in these things? That's the question. Am I putting value on the clothes on my body? Am I putting value in the things in my home? Do I say I am who I am because of how much money is in my bank account? No. Money creates this thought in our head that I am in control. And before we know it, we have a bigger voice in our lives than God does. And it's the voice that money has. Now I'm going to give you one reminder and one challenge as we wrap up. One reminder and one challenge. The reminder first. God cares about your heart more than anything in this world. And that's not even the reminder. That's a fact. That's a fact. He cares more about your heart than he does what you did yesterday. He cares more about your heart than your past. He cares more about your heart than even you showing up to this stream tonight. He cares more about you than anything in this world. God knows what you need. If he cares about your heart, then he knows your needs. He sees your heart. He sees what you're after and what's going to fulfill it. But he also knows what you need to survive and how to get through each day. He cares so much that he sees our needs and he wants to provide for them. Matthew 6, later on, verses 32 to 33, it says, your heavenly Father knows your needs, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you. That's a promise right in Scripture. God sees your needs. He sees your heart. He wants us to trust him with our whole hearts, knowing, God, I know that you know what I need. I'm going to trust you that you're going to do what you can do to provide for me, Father. But here is the reminder. I said I'm going to give you a reminder. Here it is. Where your heart goes, your life will follow. Where your heart goes, your life will follow. If your heart is serving both the love of money and the love of God, then you are not trusting God with your whole heart. You're not. And when you give money to the church, you're not just throwing money away to an organization. No, instead, you're saying no to ourselves first. No to what I need first, and yes to what you need, God. And in that, you're saying, God, I trust you with everything, even a small portion of my paycheck. This shows God that he has priority in our life, that we give to him first. That little 10% or whatever, however much you can give, that just shows God that we are trusting you, God, to provide for me. And when we do get money, it is provision. It's going to give us what we need to live, but it is not the end all be all. God is what we need. That's all I got. That's the truth. That is a reminder right there. And the challenge. View giving money to the church through a spiritual lens and not a financial lens. I'm going to say that one more time. View giving money to the church through a spiritual lens and not a financial lens. And first off, I want to say this. If a church talks more about you giving them money than it does about your heart, get out of there. If they care more about how much money you're giving them instead of knowing where your relationship is with the Lord, that is a red flag. The church wants your money. It needs your money to survive. Not because it wants to take from you. No. It doesn't want to run like a bank. And if a church is running like a bank, then we should be scared. We need to get out of that. When you do give your money to the church, though, this is where you can kind of read the waters here yourselves, is the church's goal should be to help people with that money. When you give your money to the church, that church, wherever your money is going, should be to help those who are in need, help people around them. It should be driven by doing everything it can do to help the community and the city that it's in, change the world around them. Hope City, first of all, I want to say this. I am so proud of our church for how it helps the people around us, how it helps our city, the people that are in our church. I'm honored to say that I'm a part of Hope City because of that reason. But churches, they should be doing this with their money, and many of them do. Here's some examples of what your money does in a church. It provides counseling services, substance abuse programs, food banks. We have one of those run every Friday night. Summer camps for kids, for less fortunate. Marriage seminars, community service programs. It helps women with crisis, people with crisis pregnancies. They help stop sex trafficking. They pay for overseas programs. They are bringing food and water and education to terribly impoverished people. Not to mention, it provides Christians, us that come in, a place to worship, a place to fellowship, to get to know each other, to grow in our relationship with the Lord, and to receive mentorship like what we're doing right now. It helps fellow ministries in our cities, missionaries overseas reach people for the gospel, and people even in our own city who are doing the same thing. It sponsors families that have felt the effects of COVID, financially, emotionally, mentally. And they do this all for free. None of this comes at a price tag. That's amazing. There's also the side that we have this beautiful building, and it costs money to run. The lights need to turn on. The heat needs to run. We know that here in Alberta. There's little things like that. New paint on the walls. Also, there's the fact that pastors, they receive money too. We have paychecks. It's true. We have to live. I do like sleeping in my bed at night, and I do like being able to buy some dinner. Now, we also, though, as pastors, we tithe on what we get as well. We give back to the church because we want to give to the church and know that God's going to use our money and further what we're doing here at Hope City and help those that are in need. We are very fortunate, and we want others who are not so fortunate to be helped as well. We need to be generous with our money and also give back to the church to make sure that we can continue to advance the gospel. That's what Hope City's goal is to take what we do receive and give it back to those, to reach further than we've ever reached before. And when we give out of the paychecks that we make each week, it might not be the easiest thing to do from a financial viewpoint, from our financial lens. It's not easy to do, give away money, but from a spiritual lens, it can have the greatest impact ever. It could change someone's life. It's the church's duty to take what we give and use it best to share the gospel to the world around us. So, my reminder, if I can say it one more time. Whoa. Where your heart goes, your life will follow. Remember that. And the challenge for you is to view giving money to the church through a spiritual lens and not a financial lens. The church isn't after your money. It's after your heart. And most importantly, God isn't after your money. He's after your heart. Our money helps us enable, though, our church to do the best it can to share the good news of Jesus to every single person that we can. That's what our money is used for. And when we give out of a generous heart to the church, God can take even just the littlest amount and do the craziest things.